On June 20th, 1947, the notorious gangster Bugsy Siegel flew from his new Las Vegas casino to his mistress's mansion in Los Angeles. That evening, he met with Mafia associate Alan Smiley. Alan Smiley and Bugsy Siegel entered the living room, sat on the couch, and began to talk. But while they were enjoying their drinks, a hitman prowled nearby. Smiley threw himself to the floor as a bullet tore through Bugsy's head. The shot struck Bugsy Siegel, 2 to the head and 2 to the upper chest. 5 other bullets missed, but one literally blew his left eye out of its socket. Bugsy Siegel, the gangster behind the glittering Las Vegas we know today, now lay in a pool of his own blood. But the question remains, why did the mob turn on the man who had brought them so much profit? Benjamin Hyman Siegel was born on February 28, 1909 in Brooklyn into a family that embodied the destiny of thousands of Jewish immigrants of that era. His parents, newly arrived from Austria with their hopes and illusions, quickly faced the harsh New York reality. A cramped apartment shared with their 5 children in a neighborhood where poverty brushed shoulders with ambition. The very geography of their daily life told a story. Brooklyn, separated from Manhattan by the East River, symbolized the invisible boundary between dreams and opportunities. On the other side of the bridge, the Lower East Side buzzed with both legal and illegal activity, attracting all those searching for a shortcut to success. The Siegel children grew up with that acute awareness unique to the children of immigrants, the need to rise above their condition. Each developed their own strategy. Most relied on school, perseverance, and honest work, the traditional path to American integration. But Benny chose another way. From an early age, he understood that real opportunities weren't always found within classroom walls. The streets behind his school, a theater where boldness, resourcefulness, and charisma mattered far more than a diploma. It was there that he began to forge his own version of the American dream. Fast, risky, and with no way back. And so, Benny and his friends, driven by a shared vision, began carrying out small-time protection rackets. Their method, both simple and brutal, was to knock over push carts belonging to merchants, then calmly return to explain that if they didn't want it to happen again, they only had to give them $1 each. A little money, a taste of power, and already these young punks wanted more. Inspired by the older gangsters who roamed the neighborhood, they set up their own street craps games. Under the streetlights at night, or in the shade of an alleyway by day, they quickly realized that running the game paid far better than playing it. Entrepreneurial instinct, applied to crime, came naturally to them. By the end of his teenage years, Ben Siegel was already a tough but still small-time hood, until one day, in the middle of a street fight, he came face to face with a wiry young Jewish kid named Meyer Lansky. These two were struggling over a gun that had fallen to the ground. As a police whistle shrieked in the distance, Meyer, the more pragmatic of the two, suggested they'd better get out of there. From that scuffle was born an unlikely partnership, an alliance between Meyer's tactical mind and Ben's flamboyant brutality, whose violent reputation set him apart from the other neighborhood thugs. Benny, the old-timers of the Lower East Side would say, was a one-man army. He didn't know fear. Around the neighborhood, people said he was crazy as a bedbug. And that's how Bugsy was born. But the higher Siegel climbed within organized crime, the less he tolerated that nickname. Saying it to his face was to risk a beating, or worse. A few years passed, and New York's underworld soon became familiar with the unlikely duo of Ben Siegel and Meyer Lansky. Together they founded their own organization, the Meyer Gang, a small group specializing in burglaries, robberies, and all sorts of crooked deals. Ben played the role of the impulsive, feared enforcer, the muscle that Meyer knew how to channel and use strategically. Meyer, in turn, brought cold intelligence, organizational sense, and long-term vision. The Meyer Gang quickly diversified, fencing stolen furs, jewelry, and cars. Anything that could turn a profit was fair game. Then, a national event gave them an unexpected boost: prohibition. The illegal liquor trade became the most lucrative criminal enterprise in the country. At the center of this new market was one man pulling the strings: Arnold Rothstein, famous for fixing the 1919 World Series. A visionary of organized crime, Rothstein had a keen eye for talent. He recruited promising young criminals to run his bootlegging operations, and among the first were Bugsy and Meyer. With Meyer's intelligence, they came up with a clever cover for their operations. They opened a small truck rental garage in Manhattan. On the surface, it looked like an ordinary business. In reality, it was a logistical hub. Trucks came and went at all hours, loaded with crates of bootleg liquor bound for New York speakeasies. By the age of 21, Bugsy already knew the taste of success, despite a rap sheet as long as his arm. Assault, drug trafficking, bootlegging, truck hijacking, armed robbery, illegal gambling, and even murder. But none of these charges ever led to conviction, because Bugsy now moved within the upper ranks of the criminal elite, protected by patrons like Arnold Rothstein, masters in the art of bribery and political favors. He flaunted his freedom and newfound wealth without shame, a display that captivated the kids of the Lower East Side, a dream none of them could reach by following the rules. With his money, Bugsy bought himself an image. He started by moving into an apartment at the Waldorf Astoria, New York's most prestigious hotel. He walked its halls with confidence. At breakfast, at the barber shop, in the corridors, simply to be seen, to prove he had changed worlds. His new stature was enhanced by his movie star looks and magnetic charm. Every woman who met his gaze seemed to fall for him, or almost. Because behind those soft eyes was always a dangerous spark, a tension ready to explode, and they could feel it. In 1929, Bugsy chose among his many admirers a Jewish brunette named Esther Krakauer. He quickly used that marriage as a tool to bolster his image of respectability. He bought a Tudor-style home in Scarsdale, a quiet stronghold of the upper middle class in suburban New York, where he and Esther could raise a family. He became one of the first Jews to break the social barriers of Scarsdale, a neighborhood that barely tolerated anyone who wasn't white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Yet Ben settled there with confidence. Now the father of 2 little girls, he drove each morning from the suburbs to the city of his underground activities, leading, in the eyes of his neighbors, the life of a perfectly ordinary family man. Like many crime bosses, Ben Siegel developed a double personality. On one side, the devoted husband and loving father. On the other, the ruthless gangster. He guarded these 2 worlds jealously, ensuring they never overlapped. Business grew even further when Bugsy and Meyer skillfully tied their destiny to that of another ambitious young gangster, Charles "Lucky" Luciano. Well-dressed and calculating, Lucky had climbed through the Italian mafia ranks via drug and prostitution rackets. But his ambition ran into a major obstacle. Young gangsters like Lucky Luciano found their rise blocked by the old guard. Not so much because of power, but because their desire to run things in a modern, business-like way clashed with the traditions of these mustached old men. For Luciano, it became clear that the mustache Petes had to go. By the early 1930s, 2 titans of that old generation, Salvatore Maranzano and Joe the Boss Masseria, were locked in a bloody war for control of New York's underworld. Too busy killing each other, they left Luciano room to maneuver. In April 1931, Luciano lured Masseria to Scarpato's restaurant in Coney Island. As he excused himself to the restroom, Foreman burst in and fired 4 bullets into Maseria's head, killing him instantly. With Joe the Boss Masseria out of the way, Maranzano took over, but not for long. Luciano wasted no time. Just 5 months after Masseria's death, he ordered Bugsy and his men to eliminate the final obstacle, Maranzano himself. On September 10, 1931, assassins disguised as federal agents entered Maranzano's office and carried out the hit. With the fall of the last old-school boss, Lucky Luciano took command of New York's Mafia and restructured it like a corporation. He created the Commission, a board of directors composed of the major family heads, responsible for overseeing all rackets, from bootlegging to prostitution. For the first time, Luciano didn't hesitate to bring in non-Italians. Jews like Bugsy and Meyer, even Irishmen, as long as they made money. His motto was simple: as long as it earns, I don't care about your name or where you're from. This new ethic, modeled after the principles of American capitalism, broke only one rule. The law was an obstacle to be bypassed, and violence a legitimate way to get ahead. In this game, Bugsy had one major advantage: his intimidating aura, a powerful asset when it came to sealing major deals or enforcing them. Thanks to his natural instinct for violence, Bugsy climbed the ranks until he was placed in charge of the Mafia's very own murder department. That fearsome squad of contract killers the press would later call Murder Incorporated. These cold-blooded men carried out the executions ordered by Manhattan's top crime bosses. And when a hit was called, Bidden didn't just send a few of his goons. He led them himself, right in the center of the operation. Violence wasn't just his trade. It was his outlet, a dark pleasure he sought nowhere else. But his days in New York were numbered. In 1935, a special prosecutor, Thomas Dewey, launched an all-out crusade against organized crime. His number one target? Lucky Luciano, Bugsy's boss. And he struck hard. Luciano was arrested and convicted on prostitution-related extortion charges, a clever maneuver that sent a clear message: no one was untouchable, not even the bosses. Bugsy too felt the noose tightening. Like his mentor, he had become too visible. He loved attention, dressing like a movie star in houndstooth jackets, bright ties, and flashing his trademark confident smile. But that flashy elegance which made him so magnetic in public betrayed a fatal flaw, the same one that had brought down Lucky. Under the spotlight, it became very hard to stay invisible to the law. Another reason pushed Bugsy to change course. The repeal of Prohibition in 1933 had arguably ended the Mafia's most profitable racket. Gangsters now had to find new ground to exploit. And what was rising fast in the early 1930s was gambling. While his loyal friend Meyer went to Havana to lay low and hone his skills in the booming casino industry, Bugsy made a different choice. For this elegant gangster with movie star looks, there was only one place to be: Hollywood. The glamour, glitz, and sparkle of Hollywood seemed tailor-made for Bugsy's charm and flair for illusion. With his striking good looks and the weight of New York's Mafia behind him, he was sent to the West Coast with a clear mission: to take control of the local rackets. It took guts for Siegel to land in Los Angeles and carve out a space for himself and his associates. He did it through a calculated mix of shrewd business and raw violence, backed by methodical intimidation. Bugsy soon gained control, first of illegal betting, then of prostitution and narcotics. He began spending lavishly, bribing cops and politicians, buying a Hollywood estate, and running up bills at the city's trendiest hotspots. He excelled at the art of blending business with pleasure on a grand scale. He was handsome, irresistible to women, and knew how to win men's trust with a firm handshake and a pat on the back. If someone had $100 to bet on a horse at Santa Ana, Bugsy could take it off them without effort. In the hedonistic atmosphere of 1930s Hollywood, a man like Ben Siegel fit right in. Before long, Bugsy was mingling with Hollywood's biggest names: Jean Harlow, Clark Gable, Jack Warner. attending lavish parties and frequenting the most exclusive venues. His new friends introduced him to the world of cinema, which he fell in love with. Rumor even has it he did a screen test. But Bugsy's fascination with the movie industry went far beyond vanity. He saw dollar signs. Bugsy was now in his element. From Sunset Strip to pristine avenues of Beverly Hills, he moved in a world of manicured palm trees, gleaming villas, and discreet private clubs. Far, far from the grimy sidewalks and fish-stench alleys of New York's Lower East Side. Over 3,000 miles, and what felt like light years, separated him from his impoverished childhood. His wife and 2 daughters, living in a luxurious Hollywood villa, seemed to belong to another life. He took care of them, yes, but from a distance. His real attention was consumed by social life, parties, and the immediate pleasures of a world filled with stars, smoke, alcohol, and gambling. Among the many starlets and socialites who fell under his spell, one woman stood out. Countess Dorothy de Frazzo. An American of humble origins, she had risen through marriage to an aging Italian count and made a name for herself in Europe's high society. With Ben, she formed an unlikely and inseparable duo, the grand lady and the stylish thug. Together they lived adventures straight out of a Hollywood screenplay. During a stay in Rome, Dorothy invited Bugsy to her family villa, a magnificent estate steeped in history. What she hadn't planned on was the simultaneous visit of 2 major figures of the Nazi regime, Joseph Goebbels and Hermann Göring, who had come to meet Mussolini in grand fashion. By coincidence, they were also lodging in the Count's villa. When Ben learned that 2 of the architects of Nazism and its openly declared anti-Semitism were sleeping under the same roof as him, he flew into a furious rage. In his own words, he wanted to take them out right then and there, pull his gun, and finish it on the spot. It took all of Dorothy's diplomacy and composure to calm him down. She made him understand that killing 2 high-ranking German officials on foreign soil in an Italian aristocrat's home would spark an international scandal with unimaginable consequences, not to mention the impact it would have on her husband, too deeply entangled in that world for a bloodbath to go unnoticed. Bugsy bit his tongue. He held himself back, but this little-known episode revealed the man behind the tailored suits, impulsive, unpredictable, driven by a visceral rage, even in the gilded salons of European high society. By November 1939, as Bugsy made a brief return to New York, Thomas Dewey's intensifying crusade against organized crime was spreading panic through the underworld. Many mobsters facing the threat of long prison sentences began to talk, and among the names that surfaced was Harry Big Greeny Greenberg, a former associate from Murder Incorporated. Greenberg, concerned, had fled to Los Angeles, hoping distance would save him. But he didn't realize that Los Angeles was now Bugsy's territory. The contract was approved by the higher-ups, and Bugsy was tasked with overseeing it. He could have, like many mob leaders, delegated the job to younger hitmen. After all, the Murder Inc. machine was running at full speed, and manpower wasn't in short supply. But that wasn't Bugsy's style. This one was personal. Ben took the first plane to California. He tracked Greenberg down, located his hideout, and planned the hit meticulously. And when the time came, he pulled the trigger himself. The story could have ended there. But this time, luck wasn't on Ben's side. Confidential information, maybe a leak, maybe a betrayal, reached the police. Siegel's name appeared clearly in the report. Alerted by Dewey, California authorities took action. And unlike before, Ben couldn't just slip a few bundles of cash to the right people and walk free. For the first time, Ben Siegel was formally charged with murder. When Ben Siegel was formally indicted in Los Angeles for the murder of Harry Big Greeny Greenberg, his reaction stunned everyone. Furious, he demanded that the district attorney return the $30,000 he had generously contributed to his election campaign. The most astonishing part? The prosecutor actually did it. He gathered the money and handed it back to Bugsy. Officially, Siegel was awaiting trial behind bars. Unofficially, he was living like royalty. He was treated so well that rumors began spreading through the city. Some claimed to have seen him getting his hair cut at his usual barber shop. Others swore they spotted him on the terrace of a fancy restaurant accompanied by a mistress. In truth, Ben regularly went out, dined in public, made appearances, and then quietly returned to his cell at night, as if nothing had happened. From his early days in New York, Ben Siegel had always managed to escape the law, and this time he intended to do the same. But while he was enjoying his comfortable imprisonment, the Los Angeles prosecutors, backed by their New York counterparts, were quietly building their case. They assembled a file and placed 3 key witnesses under protection, known only as X, Y, and Z. Witness Y turned out to be Whitney Krakauer, Bugsy's own brother-in-law, and alleged accomplice in the Greenberg hit. Bugsy, sensing betrayal, or perhaps simply consumed by paranoia, had him eliminated. That left only 2 witnesses, X and Z. Both were under heavy protection somewhere in New York. Then, witness X mysteriously fell from a hotel window. Accident? Suicide? No one ever found out. But the message was unmistakable. No one was untouchable. With only 1 witness left alive, the prosecution knew their case was dead. Without solid evidence, the charges were dropped. Once again, Ben Siegel had slipped through the cracks. But as he celebrated his latest victory over the law, fate came knocking in the form of a woman, an old acquaintance from New York. Beautiful, ambitious, daring. Her name? Virginia Hill. Virginia Hill began her career in organized crime while still a teenager from a small town in Georgia. In 1933, she left the dusty southern fields for Chicago, drawn by the lights of the World's Fair, and a promise of a life made for her kind of ambition. She loved big hats, high heels, and knew exactly how to make heads turn. She started as a dancer, then as a waitress in a mob-connected restaurant. It didn't take long for one of Al Capone's men to notice her, and naturally to bring her into the fold. She learned how to launder money, place bets, and move drugs discreetly from point A to point B. In return, she got everything a woman could want: jewelry, furs, envelopes full of cash, and the illusion of security. But Virginia Hill was not the kind of woman to live in a man's shadow, not even Capone's. By the mid-1930s, she was sent to New York to oversee Chicago's interests on the East Coast. There she met Joe Adonis, the king of illegal gambling. She immediately recognized a man of stature and seduced him. They became lovers. But fate had other plans. Another man soon crossed her path. Wilder, more charismatic, more dangerous. Bugsy Siegel. Bugsy and Adonis despised each other. They were rivals in business and in women. And when Bugsy laid eyes on Virginia, he only had one thought: steal Joe's mistress. It took just one night. One. The attraction was electric, but the timing was off. Bugsy moved west to build his empire in L.A., while Virginia returned to her affairs, until the West Coast brought them together again. By the late 1930s, as Siegel was establishing his rule in Los Angeles, Virginia arrived in Hollywood, sent by Chicago to recruit gamblers and expand their betting operations. And, as always, she did it in style. She fit perfectly into the glamorous scene. 2 dream residences, including Falcon's Lair, the former villa of Rudolph Valentino, and another elegant mansion at 810 North Linden Drive in the heart of Beverly Hills. She threw lavish parties, mingled with movie stars, and inevitably with Bugsy. Their reunion was only a matter of time, and this time, the timing was perfect. Those who knew Virginia and Ben swore they were made for each other, not because they completed each other, but because they were the same. 2 storms, 2 fires, 2 unimaginable egos. People say opposites attract, not them. They were twin flames. Virginia Hill had a volatile, unpredictable temper. She could kiss you one minute and throw a drink in your face the next. Ben Siegel, the same, and he loved it. Every one of Virginia's explosions was like a love declaration in dynamite form. They were beautiful, arrogant, insolent, and they couldn't care less what the world thought. Together, they became the unofficial king and queen of Hollywood's underworld. She represented Chicago. He represented New York. Their interests often overlapped in gambling, drugs, and payoffs. But in 1941, things changed. Bugsy felt the pressure mounting in LA. Even though he had dodged the Greenberg murder case, the press wouldn't leave him alone. And when you operate in the shadows, media attention can be deadly. So with his loyal partner, Mo Sedway, Bugsy looked east toward the desert. About 300 miles away lay a half-dead town with a unique opportunity, Las Vegas, a forgotten corner of Nevada where gambling had been legal since 1931. At the time, Vegas was little more than a dusty pit stop between Los Angeles and Salt Lake City. A few shabby bars, a couple of motels, a handful of tin-roof casinos, and enormous potential. Bugsy saw it instantly. To him, the desert wasn't a wasteland. It was a blank canvas. He didn't see what was there. He saw what could be an empire of gambling, a city of vice, a new Hollywood, wilder, richer, and far more dangerous. And Ben Siegel wanted to be its prophet. Ben, Mo Sedway, and Mo's wife were the first to make the trip to Las Vegas. Back then, there was only one road leading to the city, or rather, two faint tire tracks etched into the burning sand. When they finally reached the dusty strip in the middle of nowhere, Mo's wife looked around in disbelief and asked what on earth they could possibly want in a place like this. It was a fair question, because at the time, no one was betting on Las Vegas. Legend says Bugsy had a vision. Palm trees, neon lights, cocktails by the pool, the sound of chips clinking beneath chandeliers, and crowds from around the world coming to gamble, drink, and forget the rest. An oasis in the desert, but the truth was far less romantic. As usual, Bugsy was about to take someone else's dream, to make it his own. He wasn't the architect of the fantasy. He was its thief, its promoter, and perhaps its destroyer. When he first set foot in Vegas in the early 1940s, the city was no paradise. It was a forgotten pit stop, a handful of shabby hotels, 2 or 3 rundown casinos, and a heat so brutal it could melt a gun. Gambling had been legal there for over a decade, but no one thought of Las Vegas as glamorous. It was a haunt for compulsive gamblers, tired cowboys, and travelers passing through, nothing more. And yet, geographically, it had promise. Only 300 miles from Los Angeles, Las Vegas was much closer than Havana or Monte Carlo. And unlike Florida or Cuba, no lawman could come bust your blackjack table. The early casinos, crude as they were already connected to horse betting operations through underground phone lines linking bookies across the country. Bugsy and Mo quickly took control of those networks, securing their hold on Vegas's betting business. But Bugsy wanted more, much more. He first tried to buy the El Rancho Vegas, one of the few halfway decent hotels in town. But the owner, wary of Siegel's reputation, flatly refused, and later bragged about it as an act of courage. So Bugsy turned to the El Cortez, a small downtown casino. He formed a consortium, invested money, made some adjustments, and sold it 6 months later for a profit. But that wasn't enough. Then one day, staring across the shimmering desert horizon, he saw the walls of a new project rising about 7 miles south of the city, on what would one day become the Las Vegas Strip. The project was called the Flamingo Hotel and Casino, but it wasn't his idea. It belonged to a Los Angeles businessman named Billy Wilkerson. Wilkerson was a restaurateur, the publisher of The Hollywood Reporter, and the owner of several elite nightclubs frequented by stars. He dreamed of building a luxury resort that combined the elegance of a European palace with the excitement of an American casino, a place of refinement, champagne, and tuxedo dealers. But Wilkerson had a crippling vice: gambling. He wagered as regularly as he breathed, never for less than $500 a day, and could lose as much as $50,000 in a single night. One evening, a friend told him something that would change everything. If you're going to lose that kind of money, you might as well lose it in your own casino. That remark planted the seed for the Flamingo, a dream hotel, a high-end casino, a playground for the wealthy, right in the middle of the desert, a Disneyland for grown-ups. But in January 1945, Wilkerson's old habits resurfaced. He lost the funds needed to finish construction, and the project ground to a halt. That's when Bugsy saw his chance. With backing from his underworld partners, including Lucky Luciano and Meyer Lansky, he offered to invest in the project. Wilkerson, desperate, agreed. A month later, 3 men arrived on site: Mo Sedway, Gus Greenbaum, and Bugsy Siegel. Bugsy shook Wilkerson's hand and informed him that he was now his new partner. But as often happens when outsiders deal with the mob, the partnership didn't last. Wilkerson was pushed out, and Bugsy took full control of the Flamingo. Overnight, a man with no experience in construction or hotel management became the head of one of the most ambitious projects in America. And very soon, Bugsy began claiming that the idea had been his all along. Bugsy poured his soul into it. He promised investors the grand opening would happen the day after Christmas 1946, an impossible deadline less than a year away. He demanded only the finest, every detail, every material, every finish. But post-war America was still facing shortages, and luxury came at a premium. Bugsy didn't care. He paid whatever it took. Costs skyrocketed. Suppliers scammed him repeatedly, charging double, even triple for the same goods. Bugsy had no clue what he was doing, and his gangster stubbornness only made things worse. He was burning through money at an alarming rate. The mob's patience was running thin. The original $1 million budget had ballooned to over $4 million. In desperation, Bugsy turned to his old friend Meyer Lansky, begging the syndicate for more funds. The answer was clear: no. In their world, such excess was unforgivable. Bugsy's erratic behavior had become a liability. He grew violent, paranoid, explosive. He even had secret tunnels dug beneath the Flamingo, one hidden under his closet, leading to a private escape corridor, a ridiculous luxury that only deepened the project's financial hole. His personal life collapsed alongside his business. By the summer of 1946, his wife Esther, humiliated by the public affair with Virginia, filed for divorce in Reno. She won $600 a month in alimony and custody of their 2 daughters. But even that break brought no peace. His relationship with Virginia was as fiery as ever, fueled by ambition, jealousy, and volatility. As Christmas 1946 approached, the Flamingo was nowhere near complete. Only the casino, restaurant, and theater were ready. The hotel rooms barely started. The mob advised him to postpone the opening. Bugsy refused. On December 26, 1946, torrential rain flooded Las Vegas. The grand opening was a disaster. Xavier Cutcat and Jimmy Durante performed as scheduled, but most of the Hollywood elite were stuck in Los Angeles. Planes couldn't take off. The crowd was full, but full of locals, not stars, and chaos reigned. Kitchen doors opened the wrong way, waiters crashed into each other, trays hit the floor. Worse still, no rooms were ready. Guests gambled, won or lost fortunes, then left to sleep elsewhere, at the El Rancho or the Frontier. In the following weeks, the casino limped along, losing money faster than ever. On February 1st, Bugsy shut it down for a month to finish construction. When it reopened in March 1947, Siegel became obsessed, hovering over every detail like a hawk. Witnesses saw a new side of him, the mobster turned perfectionist hotelier. The Flamingo was finally edging toward payoff, but not fast enough for the mob. Luciano and Lansky wanted answers. Bugsy stalled, dodged questions, promised results. For the first time in his life, he was out of control. The budget had exploded, and rumors began to swirl that Bugsy or Virginia or both were skimming mob money. Luciano's patience snapped, and one thing was certain: Bugsy Siegel had just become bad for business. A few months went by, and the investors had had enough. For them, there was no longer any doubt. Bugsy had to go, but his explosive personality made any direct confrontation far too dangerous. It was unthinkable to simply walk into his office and tell him he was being replaced, that he could stay on as a shareholder, sure, but he had to step aside from the project. They all knew Bugsy would never accept that. So a grim conclusion became inevitable. The only way to make him understand he was finished was to make him disappear. Even Meyer Lansky, one of the main investors in the Flamingo and Bugsy's childhood friend, couldn't save him. He had tried several times to talk sense into Ben, but Bugsy ignored every warning. Reluctantly, Lansky accepted the inevitable. He stepped back and let others handle it. Tension was building everywhere, even between Bugsy and Virginia. On June 19, 1947, the two had yet another argument, this one more violent, darker than ever before. A point of no return. Not even their passion could mend the cracks anymore. The next day, Virginia boarded a plane to Paris. According to several accounts, the mob had ordered her to get away from Siegel, and Virginia, who knew better than anyone the unspoken rules of that world, understood instantly what that meant. She knew how the family settled its scores, so she ran. After Virginia's sudden departure, Bugsy returned to Los Angeles to handle some business. June 20th, 1947 began like a promising day. That morning, he went to Drucker's in Beverly Hills for a shave and a haircut. The calm, gentleman's club atmosphere relaxed him. Later, he spent some time with his old friend, actor George Raft, reminiscing about film sets, trading jokes, laughing. Despite the pressure hanging over him, he seemed confident for once. Things felt under control. In the early morning, he ran into Alan Smiley, a poker buddy. On a whim, he invited him to dinner. The small group also included Chick, Virginia's brother, and Jerry, Chick's girlfriend. They met at Bugsy's favorite steakhouse, where the warm atmosphere and leather booths echoed with laughter and cheerful conversation. Later that night, they returned to Virginia's Beverly Hills villa. Chuck and Jerry, tired, went upstairs to bed. Bugsy and Smiley stayed in the living room. Bugsy was reading the Los Angeles Times, relaxed. The clock showing 10:30 p.m. Everything was still. Then, a man crept toward the window through the bushes. The weapon's barrel gleamed briefly in the streetlight, and then came the gunfire. 9 bullets tore through the night. The first ripped through Bugsy's right eye socket. The eyeball was thrown across the room. The second shattered his neck, smashed his nose, and destroyed his other eye. The remaining 7 slipped into walls and furniture as if to erase any trace of life. In a matter of seconds, Benjamin Bugsy Siegel was dead. A killing of shocking brutality, but strangely, an instant death. He never even knew what hit him. The news of Bugsy Siegel's murder spread like wildfire through the desert, all the way to the neon lights of the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. It was a classic mob execution, a message loud and clear. Ben's reign was over. Meanwhile, Virginia was hiding somewhere in Europe, off the radar, impossible to find. Was she warned? Complicit? No one ever really knew. Even in death, Benjamin Bugsy Siegel kept a touch of style. He was buried in a silver coffin worth $5,000. Despite his fame, only 5 people attended the funeral. Esther, his ex-wife, their 2 teenage daughters, Barbara and Millicent, his brother Maurice, a respected Hollywood doctor, and his beloved sister, Bessie Soloway. The ceremony lasted barely 5 minutes, over before the funeral parlor even officially opened. No procession, no eulogy, no public tribute, just cold silence. Then, nothing. In the years that followed, Virginia Hill tried to disappear. She married an Austrian ski instructor, moved to Washington State, and had a son. But her past was never far behind. In 1951, she was summoned before the U.S. Congress to testify about the Mafia and Bugsy's death.
Did you ever get any money from any other person whom we might call a gangster other than Siegel?
No.
Did you ever get any money from Costello?
No.
And did you ever get any money from Meyer Lansky?
I never got money from any of those fellas.
None of those
None
fellas?
of those fellas. None of these that I've been reading about, and none that I knew. They never gave me anything.
None of the Fichettes?
No.
Did
I
they-
don't even speak to them. I mean, I met that Charlie once twice. I don't even talk to him.
You don't like him?
No.
Then, in 1954, she found herself once again in trouble with the law, this time for tax evasion. She fled for good, returning to Europe. On March 24, 1966, her body was found in her home in Koppel, near Salzburg, Austria. The official report called it a suicide, an overdose of sleeping pills, but many didn't believe it. In certain circles, whispers spread. The mob, fearing she knew too much, had finally silenced Bugsy's baby for good. As the official investigation stalled and the main suspects sank into silence, one question continued to haunt everyone interested in the rise and fall of Bugsy Siegel. Who really pulled the trigger that night in the Beverly Hills mansion? In this final chapter, we'll explore several theories, each as plausible as it is controversial, that attempt to unravel the mystery of his assassination. Beverly Hills Police Chief Clinton Anderson once stated,
"We devoted countless hours to the investigation and became convinced that he was killed by his own associates. We just never had enough evidence to identify the killer."
With that, it's time to begin examining the leading theories about who killed Bugsy Siegel. Theory 1. Eddie Cannizzaro, aka the Catman. He died in 1987 of heart failure, but just before taking his last breath, he summoned a journalist and federal agents to his bedside, where he confessed to 7 murders, including that of Bugsy Siegel. Yet his confession immediately raised doubts. Cannizzaro claimed that he had been questioned at the time of the murder, but no official record of such an interview exists in the Siegel case file. He also claimed that after shooting Siegel, he fled toward Wilshire Boulevard, while a neighbor interviewed shortly after the shooting reported hearing a car speeding off in the opposite direction, toward Sunset Boulevard. At the time of his death, Cannizzaro was living with his mother in Agora Hills, west of Los Angeles County, surrounded by more than 30 cats. He was reportedly developing a birth control serum for felines, even attempting to recruit some of his old Las Vegas associates to fund his bizarre project. Theory 2. The war veteran, Robert McDonald. This theory comes from Warren Hull, an executive assistant in Nevada, whose father made him promise on his deathbed to reveal a family secret: Robert McDonald's role in Siegel's assassination. Siegel was married to Betty Ann, Hull's maternal cousin. His mother, Gaynell Rockwell, worked at Los Angeles City Hall, where she met Jack Dragna, then considered the Al Capone of California. Gaynell reportedly told Dragna that her son-in-law was a problem, violent at times and deeply in debt to the mob, owing around $30,000. Dragna, persuaded by these confessions, allegedly approached McDonald with a deal: wipe the debt clean in exchange for killing Ben Siegel. According to Hull, McDonald's military experience had made him an expert marksman, skilled with a .30 caliber rifle, precisely the type of weapon believed to have been used in the murder. Neighbors, however, reported hearing a car speeding away in the opposite direction of Wilshire Boulevard, suggesting the killer didn't flee on foot. Hull insists, though, that McDonald lived just across a golf course, less than a kilometer from Virginia Hills mansion, close enough to slip home unnoticed under the cover of night. Still, there is no record in the Beverly Hills police files that McDonald was ever questioned as a suspect. Hull further speculated, though never proved, that Howard Hughes, who worked closely with McDonald's father, may have quietly pressured authorities to drop any investigation into the veteran. Finally, the theory takes a tragic turn. In 1987, McDonald and his wife allegedly committed suicide using the same type of weapon believed to have killed Bugsy Siegel. For Hull, this chilling coincidence only strengthens the belief that McDonald carried the secret to his grave. Theory 3. The Chicago Outfit and Virginia Hill. Another line of thought points to the Chicago mob, with help from Siegel's own mistress, Virginia Hill. Known as the trusted courier for organized crime, Virginia acted as an informant for Chicago's syndicates. According to writer Andy Edmonds, she kept the outfit updated on Siegel's every move. While Bugsy was struggling to get the Flamingo up and running, Chicago mobsters were quietly financing a rival resort, the Dunes Hotel. On the day of the murder, Virginia was in Paris, a curious detail. She knew Siegel's nightly routines intimately, especially his habit of reading the newspaper in the living room. It's possible she passed that information to the hitmen, making the ambush effortless. Thus, at the very moment Siegel's body was riddled with bullets, Virginia Hill was already thousands of miles away, calm and untouchable. As with any organized killing, speculation runs rampant, and no theory can be fully verified. Many others have circulated over the years, often without tangible proof. To this day, no one has ever been formally charged in the murder of Benjamin Bugsy Siegel. And if in Las Vegas, people like to say, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, then for Bugsy, one of the architects of modern Las Vegas, there remains a mystery that refuses to die. And that's how this video comes to an end. What do you think of it? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this content, a simple like, a share, or even a few words below the video really make a difference. It helps the channel grow and means a lot to me. Thank you sincerely for taking the time to watch this documentary on Bugsy Siegel. I hope it captivated you as much as I enjoyed creating it. See you very soon for a new video. Until then, take care, and see you next time.